Mediators Beyond Borders is an organization, an NGO that's existed since 2009, 2008. We have roughly 400 people around the world. They are all volunteers, and they all come from a background of having a strong background training, formal training as mediators, basically meaning the skills to be able to enter in as a neutral in a dispute between other individuals, groups, organizations, or regions. And we began with the idea of being able to provide an opportunity for people with those skills throughout the world to be able to express their skills on a larger level, concentrating them in a way that they have the greatest efficiency, because we bring like people together, and we then attempt to support the people who are on the ground who have similar skills, so that we are not only able to provide the skill, but then also the training for the skill and the background for nonviolent, non-judicial.
How does this relate to climate change, if I can jump in?
It relates to climate change because when the MBB began, one of the efforts we wanted to be able to focus on was the notion of the environment and the issues of a green world. We had the opportunity to, that first year in 2009, have our first year as a observer at the Copenhagen COP. And so from there, our purpose was to be able to find ways in which we can affect change inside the UNFCCC regarding their appreciation for the use of neutrals, and then to be able to also see how we could apply that idea of neutral problem solving into the regions that are most need, that are here also within the UNFCCC.
Now, we know that climate change negotiations are a fraught process, and we see oil exporters pitted against vulnerable island states and rich versus poor and the rest. So you guys have an important role to play, would you say, Susan?
I think we have a very important role to play, but probably not the way you're thinking. We think it's very important to have mediation included in the dispute resolution procedures. The way the Kyoto Accords read, if there's a dispute over forests, over water, over land, whatever, parties can litigate in the international court, they can arbitrate, and they can negotiate. We think that mediation provides a very different venue for folks to come together when they have issues that need to be resolved, and it's unique in that it's a safe place. It's a place where they each get to tell their stories, they get to get their feelings out, and then only after that's done they get to focus on what the issues are that need to be resolved. We get them off of positions. We're trained to teach them to move from positions to issues. You can talk about issues, you can make changes with issues, and it's been very, very successful. So our goal here is to get mediation included in the final dispute resolution procedures.
Would you be able to give us some examples of where you've helped out processes?
Where we have done what?
Examples where you've been able to mediate on particular, points of conflict between two parties.
Well, one of the things that we have not done very particularly is taken on a role of seeing ourselves as mediating between disputes within parties or within the UNFCCC. The reason for that is our purpose is to advocate for the use of mediators throughout the entire world. And therefore we are here as kind of the nose in the tent on behalf of all other mediators, so that we are able to be seen as eligible to advocate for the use of neutrals, rather than being seen as individuals who are resolving individual disputes. Yes, we talk to delegates, we've talked to many delegates, we've talked to probably 120 of the 194 delegations about the use of mediation. So we have attempted to advocate that type of use, and they have readily identify where there are individuals who either play those roles currently, or how they clearly understand there is a need for that process over the long term.
How is this COP playing out? As some say there's never been this greater convergence of countries towards wanting to tackle climate change. Is that how you see it, Susan?
Well, I'm looking at it from a very different perspective, because I'm here just really to talk to the delegates, and I do listen to what's going on. I listened last night until 20 of 11. It was so late, and I was disappointed to see how many problems there were, what I hope that will get resolved over the weekend. But my focus has been totally on meeting with delegates, and I wanted to say that every single delegate we've met with is 100% behind us. Some of them, I just signed up two the other day who wanted to become members of our organization. They don't even know how to mediate yet, but they were so excited. They came and said, how can we join your organization, and now can you help us to get some training? So we're in the process of trying to help them to do that. They're in Zimbabwe, these two new members. But so that's my focus, has been really on educating people, especially the delegates, if they don't know about mediation, and trying to get it into the final dispute resolution procedures.
How do we get it formally enshrined, though, in something like a treaty or some kind of document? What's the process?
The process is one that's taken many years. Sure. First of all, it was just to gain legitimacy within the UNFCCC that we, for mediators, had a legitimate voice inside of the organization. I think we've been very successful in that regard. Then we needed to be very realistic regarding how one brings language that Susie refers to, where we actually mentioned mediation and facilitated negotiation as language within the protocols. So starting several years ago, we made sure that we prepared a legally appropriate language. We submitted it to the Secretariat. They reviewed it and posted it. So we are one of the few NGOs that have legitimate language, meaning that we can go to a delegate or a delegation and say, here's language that we already know is approved by the Secretariat for inclusion. But we have no standing, obviously. We have to go through delegates to formally bring that forward. But once we got the legal aspects of it created, we then went ahead and produced the language in the five basic, the papers in the five basic languages. We give them to as many delegates as we can speak to, and we have finally received the formal acceptance from at least one of the delegations to go ahead and sponsor our language. And so now our point is to be able to build the support for that individual delegation so that when and if the opportunity comes, obviously not at this point in time in COP21, but post, especially in Article 11, which deals with the notion of, how are we going to go ahead and deal with the output of this, and also transparency in Article 6. But on both of those conditions, we want to have not only the language but also the delegations prepared so at the opportune time they were able to pose that. And it's not just the idea of one voice, one delegation, but they will understand the group of Confederates that they will have who will support that. And that number is growing.
Thomas, Susie, thanks ever so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.